Greetings everyone. Greetings everyone. Nice to see you on Mother's Day. Greetings everyone. This is Mental Health Live with Musawo Justine Kigozi. We are just waiting for our team to arrive and join us this evening. We're just waiting for our team to arrive and join us this evening. Our topic today is something to do with maternal mental health. I think it's something that is important given that today is Mother's Day. Good evening everyone. Welcome. This is Mental Health Live with Musawo Justine Kigozi. We are live this evening and our topic is on maternal mental health. Given that today is Mother's Day, our topic is maternal mental health. I have 2 points to make before we start this evening. One point is on a sad note, obviously, with everything going on with COVID-19. COVID-19 is a public health issue, it's a pandemic, it's a problem, and everyone is worried and anxious about this. The biggest problem with COVID-19 is that we shouldn't just look at it as a physical health problem. It also causes a lot of anxiety among people. It causes a lot of uncertainty among people, and that means it affects people's mental health and psychological regulation. So during this time of COVID-19, we are going to have a lot of psychological disruption. A lot of people are going to feel anxious. A lot of people are going to feel suicidal. A lot of people are going to feel worried. And in fact, for somebody who has a mental health diagnosis, it's going to be a very difficult time in life during this isolation. So if you've got a friend out there, somebody that you know is stressed, is suffering, this is the time to reach out. I'm not a COVID-19 specialist, but obviously I'm into psychiatry, and what I'm trying to say is times like this, isolation, quarantines, people are running around. This is the time when we need to support each other. This is the time we need each other. So if you can reach out to somebody, if you know somebody who doesn't drive and you think they're going to need shopping, go get it for them. If you know a single mom out there who might not have enough food for their children, go get it for them. Because during this time, it's going to be a very trying moment for everybody in isolation. We know that children are back from school as well, especially for those who live in the diaspora. That means that the children are indoors 24/7. Now, for people who live in Africa, we don't have massive back gardens and massive houses. Our houses are they're not extremely spaced. So children are going to be indoors, parents are going to be indoors, and it's not going to be a very difficult moment. So we need to remember that we need to support each other. Maternal mental health is our topic today. Happy Mother's Day to everyone. I hope that every mother out there was treated today with breakfast in bed and loads of hugs from their beautiful children, because I got some today myself. So happy Mother's Day to everyone. Despite the crisis going on globally, we still have our children to enjoy, and we can always remember those moments when we carried them and brought them into the world. It's the most beautiful thing everyone can ever go through. So happy Mother's Day to everyone out there, and any dads out there, I hope you've treated your wives or your partners to something nice for being a mother. So our topic today is maternal mental health. When somebody mentions maternal mental health, most people will think about postpartum depression or postnatal depression. Of course, that is our topic today. That's something we need to touch on today. But why are we touching on maternal mental health on Mother's Day? The reason we are touching on maternal mental health, I just need to briefly define the position of a woman in society. In society, a woman is molded differently. Growing up as a young girl, you're always told that you will be a mother, you will be a wife, and you will be expected to be somebody in the community. So the status of a child, a girl child in the community, is well defined traditionally, and that carries on through to adulthood, and that carries through to the inequalities sometimes we face as a woman. So the status of a woman is well defined, and that can be quite stressful to carry, that can be quite difficult to think about, and that can be sometimes traumatizing to grow up knowing that as a mother you will have this position in society but also this responsibility. As a result of that, a woman is groomed to be submissive, to be caring, to be understanding, to be remorseful. But what happens if this woman doesn't have those emotions? What happens if things change along the way? We all know about experiences in life. What happens when a woman goes through so many experiences but cannot feel those emotions anymore? The way that they were defined as a girl child does not turn out to be what they become as a woman. That's when we reverse to the situations that we are having in terms of maternal mental health, postpartum depression, postnatal depression. I'll have a quick look at a woman's maternal fact sheet. So we have a mental health fact sheet for women. The maternal fact sheet for women defines at least 10% of women in developed countries to suffer with postpartum depression or maternal mental health, but then gives 20% in developing countries. But we also have to understand that the statistics of developing countries are sometimes skewed because everything is not documented. So for some of you who come from Uganda, you will realize that we've got health centers, Health Center 1, Health Center 2, Health Center 3, regional hospitals. The documentation at a regional hospital is not similar to the documentation at a Health Center 1. So that means that when statistics are being taken, a woman who gave birth deep in the village and probably developed postpartum depression might not be defined or caught in those statistics, which makes it different, which skews the outcome. But all we know is that 20% of women in low-income countries suffer with postpartum depression, and then 10% in developed countries suffer the same phenomenon. The fact sheet also defines women, majority of women, to suffer with the following psychological issues. So majority of women are likely to present with anxiety, likely to present with panic disorders, likely to present with somatism. Somatism is when something is defined as happening but might not be happening. So somebody could say to you that they're having extreme stomach pains, but as a doctor, you could do all the physical health checks that might cause stomach pains, but they actually are not in alignment with what the person is describing. So these symptoms are actually not there, but they are feeling them. To them, it's real. It's a bit like somebody hearing voices, but those voices are not real, but psychologically, their world is turned upside down, that they're hearing what they're telling you they're hearing. So in terms of somatism, somebody can describe features that are not actually happening, but to them, it's the reality. Most women are likely to suffer with insomnia, which is poor sleep or lack of sleep. Most women are likely to suffer with self-harm. Most women are likely to suffer with eating disorders, which are the likes of anorexia, bulimia. Those are the main two ones that people can suffer with. But when you look at all these disorders that most women suffer with, they have something to do with emotions and mood. And that's really important because as women, we feel. We tend to feel. And men are described as being practical. Men tend to think. So women, we tend to use a lot of our emotions. That's why if a woman has lost something or they're in love, you will be able to see them because of their behavior. While a man can contain themselves in that situation. So back to our topic of postpartum depression. Why then are most women, or the 10% we've defined in developed countries and the 20% we've defined in low-income countries, then most likely to suffer with postpartum depression? A woman's life is a journey covered with experiences, a journey covered with a lot of expectations. Now, I'm sorry to mention, because there's a lot of men on live at the moment, and I'm not saying in any shape or form that men do not go through a traumatic development or a strict contained development. However, today I'm here to define the cultural grooming of a woman that later on might define certain aspects of their maternal mental health. So the status of a woman brought up as a girl child could expose them to further go through certain things in life. Some of the causes of postpartum depression or maternal depression, very simple things like going through poverty. It could be that during pregnancy, this woman is not able to support themselves, to attend healthy centers, to have the right checks being done. They're not eating properly because they don't have the right food. I mean, our fruits, our vegetables, they're not well looked after because financially they cannot afford. That can expose them to later suffer postpartum depression. Migration for people who are living in the diaspora. You leave your family miles away, then join, another country. There's differences culturally, there's differences in environment. It just hits you. It just hits you that everything is different. You're isolated, you're unhappy, and then if you get pregnant during that time, there's extreme stress levels in your lifetime, and that can expose you to postpartum depression as well. But also, which is very, very common and the main trigger in low-income countries, and it's well documented in a lot of statistics. If you go to World Health Organization, some of the documents that we go through by World Health Organization. In low-income countries, there's a lot of alcohol dependence, but untreated. So in high-income countries or developed countries, there seems to be pathways for treating alcohol, while in low-income countries, dependence on alcohol is seen as the norm, as a lifestyle choice, as something that somebody can live with. So as a result of that, there's a high level of domestic violence. So there's a high level of women being abused sexually, physically, emotionally, or psychologically. The worst type of abuse is for somebody not to touch you, but psychologically abuse you through the way they speak to you, the way they treat you, the way their expectations towards you. They may not actually slap you, but the way they treat you could cause a lot of psychological distress to that person. Somebody else could be all right to regulate these emotions if they are okay, but then the dilemma comes when they are carrying somebody else when they're pregnant. What happens during pregnancy? When a woman is pregnant, there's a foreign object, a foreign body within them. something that was not part of them. So for men out there, I tend to always say that you're walking down the street and a nail pops into your toe, or a parasite. Sometimes in Africa there's parasites that go into people's bodies. When that parasite goes into your bodies, it feeds on you. It's walking around with you. It is with you at all times. And I'm not describing a baby as a parasite at any time, but once a baby gets into your body as a woman, there's a lot of biological changes that take place, chemical changes that take place. A lot of things happen when the baby hits you. Most women tend to get high thyroid instead of low thyroid. Some people, some hormones drop, some people get anemic, some people get diabetic. So there's a lot of things happening physically. And when you put together that with emotional things happening, the dilemma is that you then hit a problem where you're likely to struggle with sleep, where you're likely to struggle with eating, where you're likely to struggle with bonding with this baby, where you're likely to struggle with doing everything that you're supposed to do. And for somebody who's developing postpartum depression, it can be during pregnancy, or it can be 1 year after, any time after having that baby. But during pregnancy, people around you will start noticing certain signs, and this would be things like isolating yourself, not eating properly, being unkempt. Sometimes as a woman, you stop to have a bath. You don't have a bath, you don't comb your hair, you don't brush your teeth. You stop to engage with people. Some people begin to dislike their partners and they just don't want to engage with them. But they also lose the sexual passion when it comes to engagement in sexually. They lose that passion as well. They become tearful. Most of the time they're crying. They start feeling suicidal. And some people develop a hatred for this baby, a real hatred for this baby. And at this moment in time, this person has a severe depression, and professionals should be able to notice this person, because that means that this person needs to be treated, but also the baby needs to be safeguarded, because we know very clear that there is cases of mothers who have killed their own babies. Not because they hate these babies, but because they are in the wrong state of mind at that moment in time, and they have not been treated. And they've ended up killing their own babies. There's treatment for people who suffer with postpartum depression or maternal mental health. And a lot of people might not prescribe anything, especially when you're in early stages. We would, ask you to eat certain foods, loads of fish oils, loads of vegetables, loads of fruits, but also exercise, to build that adrenaline, eat enough carbs so you get that energy level. A lot of advice in the early stages will be along your eating habits, your engagement, but also your partners stepping in to support you more. That will be the advice. But once you hit this severe part of things where you're not sleeping, you're not eating, it becomes complex, and most doctors will tend to prescribe SSRIs, which we call serotonin reactivators, uptake reactivators. This will improve your mood, they will increase your happy hormones, and these are carefully prescribed so they don't affect the baby, because sometimes some medications affect the baby's weight, so they are prescribed carefully. There's some medication out there that they use to support you, improve your mood, improve your sleep, but also ensure that by the time you have the baby, things are much, much better. Some women could suffer with postpartum depression after the birth of the baby. There's some theories to this as well. Some of them have gone through these early symptoms during pregnancy, and during childbirth they've been traumatized. The body does get traumatized, by the way, men out there and women out there. Body gets traumatized during childbirth simply because a woman could go through labor. I've known people to have labor for more than 4 days. Labor is a painful thing to go through. And then they have the baby. Some people could go through labor for so many days, then end up having a cesarean section on top of that. Some people could go through labor for so many days and have a really difficult birth where they could tear really in a bad way. This can traumatize a lot of people as women, especially if they're having their first child. It can be very, very difficult. And they're going to need a lot of psychological support after the baby's born to understand what has happened and what is going on. But a lot of times these women do not receive these interventions. Then you find that after having the baby, they lose the bond between them and this baby. So there's no bond. They dislike the baby. They cannot even hold this baby. Another issue that could cause problems is the pain relief that we use during pregnancy. There's a particular lady, I came across who had a certain type of pain relief, but because she was a health professional by background, she had actually said to the midwife, I would not want to use that medication. But when a woman is having a baby, we are very vulnerable. You're in pain. If you don't have your partner there, there's nobody to talk for you, so you have no advocacy, and the doctors will do what they want to do. So they went ahead and prescribed this medication. It's a medication that most women will probably know. It is given through the spinal cord, and as a result, she suffered pain, a lot of pain after having the baby. But this pain went on for about 6 months. She could not hold her baby. She could not breastfeed this baby. She became extremely depressed. She lost a lot of weight, but there was no interventions to support her to manage this situation. And this is the moment that us professionals should step up and learn to listen to our patients, because it's their bodies and they're the experts of their own bodies. Personally, when I'm working with a patient, I like to listen to them, because I could be meeting them for the very first time, but they've lived with their body for a very long time, and I would like to give them a benefit of a doubt and understand where they're coming from. So that's one thing. Those are some of the things that can cause postpartum depression. How we support each other through that time is a lot to do with the social surroundings of the person going through this. Partners out there, husbands out there, boyfriends out there, if your wife or partner is going through something like this, you are the backbone of this woman. You have to step in and support them. Don't judge them. Now, I've been somewhere in the diaspora where I was meeting somebody who was going through a problem like this. And I was surprised because this is in England, but her mother-in-law defined her as a lazy mother, as a bad mother, because she was going through depression after having a baby. So we need to advocate for people who go through things like this. They should not be judged. It is okay to be going through this, because you never choose to do this. But as I've mentioned, this lady was called a lazy mother, a bad mother, and somebody not good enough. She was defined as not good enough for this lady's son to be a wife to. But actually she was very unwell. And for me, the reason I do some videos like this most of the time is to reach out to people, is to empower people with knowledge. Because do you know what? The same way somebody could suffer with hypertension, diabetes, anything else physical health wise, is the same way somebody could suffer with a mental illness due to chemical imbalance in the brain. We've got a lot of live videos actually to define mental health on YouTube. So if you're out there and you want to know about mental health, my local dialect is Luganda, so I've got a few in Luganda on YouTube, and Musawo Justine Kigozi, and I've got a few in English as well on YouTube. So if you are out there and you want to understand mental health in a better language or in a broader way, because we only do lives for 30 minutes here, you can actually go on YouTube and watch something that will add value to your life. So back to postnatal depression, as I was saying, do not judge somebody suffering from postnatal depression, because it's a journey. Somebody just sent a question here on my WhatsApp. Does postnatal depression heal? Of course, postnatal depression heals. People go through that phase and they recover very, very well. Some people recover with medication. Some people use complementary therapies. So I've come across people who have used several activities, acupuncture. Some people have used their massage therapy, eating really well, doing exercises, swimming a lot, which they call hydrotherapy. The problem with using complementary therapies is that you must have the time for it and you must do it. Some people call the pharmacological approach the lazy approach, because you just pop the tablet and then wait for it to work. Those are two ways. Some people use the pharmacological approach and some people use the complementary approach, but some people tend to use a combination, the psychopharmacological approach. That works much better. You use the medication but also do the other activities. But I have met people who have suffered one episode of postnatal depression and come out of it stronger and come out of it better. So yes, people recover. Do people recover from mental illness? There is people who have suffered just one episode of mental illness and recovered from it. And unfortunately, there are people who constantly relapse and become revolving door patients. Most of the time, these are issues with non-compliance with medication.